Hey, welcome to Blueprints to Building podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer, and on this show, we interview the movers and shakers in the world of property development and real estate. So, this show is supported by something few developers have quietly been using to get their projects funded and sold faster without touching traditional 3D models. It's early, it's clever, and it's changing how people see off-plan property. I'll leave it there, but if you're curious, message me on LinkedIn at Glen Palmer Secure or check the show notes below. So today my guest is Dylan Pritchard, who is a rising quantity surveyor at Ward Williams Associates, known for his multidisciplinary project experience across the UK schemes. His mission is to redefine the QS profession and for the next generation. Dylan, it is an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for coming on and taking time out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate it. So thanks for joining me, mate.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers for having me.
Yeah. So let's jump into the topic, shall we?
Yeah.
So something that I ask everybody, if you watched it before, first question is always the same. If time travel became a reality and you had a chance to go back in time to when you first started your career, what advice would the person that you are now tell your younger self?
I think the key one is worry less. Everything sorts itself out. But in terms of work and tackling that, going from sort of for me for apprentice to where I am now, I think a lot of it was ask questions. Don't
Hmm.
just if you're given a task, don't just do it. Get it done, but make sure you're asking why and
Yeah.
what part are you playing in the overall scheme. If you're asked to do measures, why? If you're asked to do a cost plan, why? Always why, because I think
Yeah.
you learn better that way.
Yeah. And one of the things that I learned when I was growing up is there's no such thing as a stupid question. We are all here. I mean, if you look at kids, really young kids, they're always asking why? Why is this? Why is that? Why is that?
Yeah.
And that's how you learn. And without it, I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't want to look stupid, so I didn't ask questions, and then I got things wrong. And totally understand that philosophy. Ask more questions, even if it sounds silly. You never know. Somebody might be asking the same question as you.
Oh
So
yeah, usually.
yeah, yeah. So Dylan, you're really passionate about changing how quantity surveyors are viewed. So from your own journey, what do you think people misunderstand most about the role, and what needs to shift to make the profession more attractive to the next generation?
I think people misunderstand everything, if I'm totally honest. I know when I was, I did six placements doing different things from PM into quantity surveying to engineering, just to experience them different roles. And by the end of that, I wanted to do quantity surveying. That's the one that, sort of I took to. And
Mm,
everybody I was talking to at the time were, you don't want to do that. You're just counting bollards all the time, or, nobody likes you. Everyone hates QSs, or all this kind of thing. And I did it anyway, despite that. But as I'm moving through that journey now, and I've gone from sort of being an apprentice and watching people in meetings, and I've worked with quite a lot of QSs now. It's almost like a lot of people think that we're naysayers and we're just there to say no. And I've witnessed many a quantity surveyors. Don't get me wrong, there are some out there that aren't great, and they are just sat there saying no. But you can't tar everybody with the same brush. A lot of the ones that
hmm.
I've worked with, they're more like they're almost fighting tooth and nail for to make ensure the project is just viable. That they really want the project to go ahead. My view has always been, like, I've heard people say, oh, the best tool in a QS's toolbox is the ability to say no. And it's like,
Mm,
well, for me, it's you've got to say no, but if
yeah,
somebody says, can we do this? And you say, well, we can, but if we do
yeah,
this, we can do that. Or, if we consider this, we can do that. We can't do that idea, but we can do this idea because it adds
yeah,
value or, whatever. But I suppose it's just about us adding value to everything. And I think we do that, but I just don't think
yeah,
people see it. And it's a shame, really. And I think a lot of us, a lot of people don't help themselves either. A lot of quantity surveyors themselves don't help themselves in terms of, people talk about value engineering on, through the likes of LinkedIn and things like that. And
yeah.
they miss, they don't describe it the right way. They always refer it to cost cutting rather than actual value engineering. So then it does make us look bad. It looks like we're in there to come in and just cut the costs and not provide any value. But that is what
Yeah.
we're there for, to ensure the project is viable and we're providing value. That is
Yeah.
that is the goal in my eyes anyway. That's how I see our role.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you come across, when you get that friction and you get that, these people saying, oh, well, you're just naysayers. How do you approach that to say, hold on a second, chaps, this is an important role here. Without that, if you get it wrong at the beginning, you could the cost could really mount up. So we're actually helping you here. So how would you go about when someone comes up with that opposition? What would you say to them and say, we're not here to say no all the time. We're here to make it more effective. So how would you approach someone that has just been a little bit sticky?
I think I could say all I wanted, and they probably weren't listening. So I think it's more of a case I'd have to go away and prove it.
Yeah,
I'd have to, if they were saying, I'm this, and that. A lot of the time, I just think, that's fine. Say what you want, but I'll come back and I'll prove you wrong instead.
yeah,
And I think that's the only way that you can, because, like I say, you can talk, you can talk all day, and people just won't listen, or they'll have
yeah,
their opinion, and that's their right. They can have their opinion. So I'd rather just go away and just say, that's fine if that's what you think, but here's the proof. That's not what I'm here to do. That's not what our role is, and this is proof of that. I've come
yeah.
and I'll give you options. Yes, we can't do that, but here's the solution that I have that ensures project viability and also achieves what the design achieves, or whatever it is that we're
hmm
kind of arguing over.
Yeah. So working across major UK schemes from Manchester Town Hall to Sizewell C, what's the biggest challenge you see in delivering cost accuracy and value in today's UK market?
I think with the ones that I have done, like you say, the town hall and size, well, I think the easy answer is volatility. I think that's the easy go-to. Is you can just say, it's down to inflation, it's Brexit, it's COVID, it's we can all kind of push that, but I think a lot of it is a lot of these projects don't tend to get, and not just the ones that I've worked on, just generally across the board, they don't get early QS involvement.
Hmm
Like I say, we're not, quantity surveyors are kind of almost misrepresented as just people who go away and measure and price, but there's a lot of, there's procurement knowledge, there's contract knowledge, there's buildability knowledge that QSs have, that if they're brought in earlier to do that, and brought in earlier to do things like value management properly, so it's not cost cutting, it is genuine value management, and they're
Yeah.
brought in earlier on. I think that is key to providing that accuracy and really achieving true value, is bringing QSs on early. But
Yeah.
the easy answer is volatility. But that's what I would go with. I would say early QS involvement is
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
key
Yeah.
to a project being on time and in budget, really.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a little bit earlier, you've had exposure across design, engineering, and delivering teams. How much do you think highly visual tools, things like digital twins, early stage walkthroughs, 3D coordination, could help QSs communicate cost implications and design changes more effectively?
I think it can help massively. To be honest, I think one thing that I have found through client meetings and doing reports and cost plans and all that kind of thing is, we can read and we can look at numbers all day long, but a lot of the time people want to see something visual.
Hmm
He's like, it doesn't matter how old we are, we like visual things. So
Yeah.
I think using that kind of, them visual tools it's important to really get a point across, no matter what that point is, whether there's an issue or, this is the solution, that, having that visual representation is really helpful, and it helps tell a story. And I think that's the best way to really get your point across in terms of, like in terms of cost, if we're saying, like, this is where we were, this is where we are. Let's
hmm
tell that story from where we were to where we are, to give that, you know, to really bring people in and get their buy-in into, yes, this is what we thought we were going to be at, but really this is where we are. I think it's important. I think visual tools are very important. I think they
Yeah.
they really have a strong purpose in
Yeah,
what.
brilliant. And QSs are increasingly central to early decision making, like you said, cost modeling and risk control. How do you see the role evolving over the next decade as projects become more complex and clients demand more certainty upfront?
I think it's already changing slowly, but I think it definitely is because I think you think about quantity surveyors generally, you think measuring, you think that's all they do, in terms of, but you've got the likes of cost managers now who deal with mainly post contract stuff and actually just managing costs. But
Hmm.
I would kind of go a step further and say quantity surveyors are, because they do the post contract and the pre contract. I think you may have seen on my LinkedIn, I quite like the idea of a cost crusader
Yeah,
or, a value avenger or, something along the lines, because we really do, we fight for the cause from start to finish,
yeah,
from early concept to, well, as early as people as will have us, right through to final account, but we do really fight for, to bring that cost in line, whether that be through procurement or value engineering, but properly,
hmm,
not just not just going in and shaving numbers down. But yeah, I do think it's going to change dramatically with the different technologies that we've got with the use of AI and things like
yeah,
that, giving QSs the free time to, like with measuring, the time spent on measuring, reduce that time so that we can really have that more client facing role and really start adding true value rather than just sat looking at spreadsheets all day. you know,
sure.
and even from a carbon impact point of view, really come in and put cost plans in there alongside, carbon impacts. This is what it's going to cost, but this is the carbon impact. It
Yeah,
might be cheaper, but your carbon impact's higher.
yeah,
If we spend an extra 100 grand or whatever it is, you can bring your carbon impact down. And that's the kind
mm,
of thing that we can do is, as we sort of start to learn these different things and using all these different tools that we've got available even now, different assessments that we can do where we can really sort of say, this is this is the cheaper option, but is it the best option?
yeah,
It's not all about how cheap it is.
yeah,
The whole life cycle of the job. Is that the better option? Is it worth spending that little bit of money
yeah.
and getting more value for the project long term?
And
Um,
certainly with the UK going to net zero, it's becoming more and more of a must-have rather than a nice to have, is to try and get down and cut your carbon down to as much as possible. So sometimes it can be a little bit more expensive. However, in the long run, A, it's going to help the environment. B, you'll probably get more government grants because you're cutting your carbon, etc., etc. So yeah, totally agree where you're
yeah.
coming from. So, we've mentioned offline that your goal is to inspire the next generation and modernize the QS profession. So, what role do you think, firstly, technology and clearer communication systems should play in making the QS role feel more impactful, sorry, creative, and more collaborative? And how do you get the newer, younger generation into the QS profession?
Yeah, that is definitely something that I am passionate about. Is, after the RICS posted that about 80% of problems being due to lack of surveyors, I kind of at the time I thought we were really on it in terms of engagement with the younger generation, but clearly not. Um, I think a lot of it comes down to, like, when I was at school, I think 10 years ago, so I think, yeah, give or take.
Hmm.
It was you had three streams into construction. You either chose a trade, became an architect, or a project manager. That's almost like that was all that was out there for construction. So I think a lot of it starts there in terms
Yeah,
of education, in terms of what teachers can push forward. I think the other thing in terms of making it more, pushing it out to the younger generation is down to, let's stop just saying take a degree in it. Let's try and push them more to T levels and degree apprenticeships. That
yeah,
I think that hands-on experience is, you can learn all the theory in the world, but when you actually put it into practice, it's a completely different ball game.
yeah,
And so I think we need to stop saying get a degree, worry about it later. We need to really start pushing and say, why don't you try doing a T level? See if you're interested. see, because you can kind of, with a degree, you get the theory, but with the apprenticeship, you pick up them soft skills, the ability to speak to clients, to peers, to pull these reports together that, they're not like your dissertation and things like that. They've got to be in a certain way. And it's them little things that you do regularly,
Yeah. Yeah.
notice, and learn
I,
doing it.
I've, I've always been a strong believer in practical rather than fit theory. I mean, I've spoken to numerous people that have, and me, myself, I mean, I went into criminal psychology. Never did it. Never did it. Done something else completely different. And there is a lot of people out there that will go into university, do the university degree, come out, and it's not what it cracked up to be. So they do something totally different. So I am 100% agree with you there. There needs to be sort of earn while you learn sort of practicalities there,
Yeah,
to really show people this is what it's all about. This is how you're doing it. Getting the practical side and the theory side both together at the same time.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
I think on top of that as well, there's almost the flip side is, we're talking about the benefit for, young people coming into the industry, and like you're saying, the earn while you learn kind of thing. But I think there's also that two-way street in terms of mentorship.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
younger generation coming in who are relatively tech savvy. They have a different approach to things, and they are the future of the industry. But then you also have a lot of, I've worked with a lot of people who are more senior, director level, who are kind of like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And you're kind of like, well, just because it's not broke doesn't mean it can't be improved.
yeah,
And you can do that with, the likes of technology, where you can kind of say to, that reverse mentorship kind of role where you say, well, hang on, you teach me how to do that, and I will give you my experience.
yeah,
I can tell you my experience and the things that I've done, and you can learn from that. But can you teach me that? It's not just one way mentorship. I fully believe it's two ways,
yeah.
because there's a lot that the younger generation have to offer,
Oh,
um,
definitely.
that we don't capitalize on. And like I see senior people struggling to just do simple things like convert to PDF.
Yeah,
Just things like that. And you're like, well, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and it's like, well, all you have to do is learn. That's all. That's
yeah,
all I'm asking for. Just because you're
yeah.
so far into your career, 30, 40 years into your career, doesn't mean you stop learning.
Yeah, I don't think we ever stop learning. I
No.
think we'll always continue to learn every single day. I mean, it's one of my mantras is that I learn something new every single day,
Yeah.
no matter what it is. I learn something new every day. And yeah, the teach old dog new tricks. That's an old saying, mate. It's yeah, you never stop learning. But anyway, that's it for today's show. Dylan, loved our conversation on the important role of QSs are having in construction. Just before we sign off, if listeners want to get in contact with you, learn what you offer at Ward Williams, what's the best ways for listeners to do that?
They can reach out on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on that. Typically, that's probably the best way to contact me.
Right.
I can also give you, my email and things like that if it's of any use.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Before we go, for everybody out there, my listeners, quick nod to the tech that's back in the show, the one that's changing how developments are visualized and sold. Didn't name it for a reason. Message me if you want to know why. So you've been listening to Blueprints to Buildings podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer. I was joined today by Dylan Pritchard. Thanks again for listening, and see you in the next episode.